Every empire swore its money was safe, every generation trusted their savings would last, and every time history proved them wrong. From Rome to France, from the Confederacy to Lebanon, people woke up to find their savings worthless, their salaries meaningless, and their futures stolen by systems they thought were solid. Collapse isn't rare, collapse is the rule. The question isn't if money fails, it's what survives when it does. As we grow up thinking money is permanent, we see numbers in a bank account and think they mean security. We trust that governments protect us, that paper and digital balances represent real value. But money isn't value. It's belief, a shared story that exists only as long as everyone keeps believing it. Every financial system in history has been built on that illusion. In good times, people don't question it. In bad times, they remember too late that the foundation of the economy is not gold, not paper, not digits, but trust. The Byzantines learned this early. Their gold coin, the solidus, ruled trade across Europe, Asia, and North Africa for almost 700 years. It was so pure that merchants accepted it without question. It became the backbone of the medieval world, a global reserve currency before the term existed. But power breeds temptation. As wars drained the treasury and emperors demanded more spending, the state began doing what every government eventually does, quietly reducing the gold content of its coinage. At first it seemed harmless. A little less gold here, a little more alloy there. The coins looked the same, weighed the same, and carried the same imperial stamp. But the deception was real. With every small act of debasement, the empire traded honesty for convenience. Confidence held, until one day it didn't. Merchants started weighing coins instead of trusting them. Trade slowed, prices rose. Then the Byzantines discovered the oldest law of money: once trust cracks, no law or emperor can put it back together. That moment, repeated through history, marks the beginning of every financial collapse. Rome's silver denarius, France's assignats, Germany's marks, Lebanon's pound, all began as symbols of trust, and all ended as warnings. History keeps the receipts. Every century leaves behind the bones of a financial illusion that once felt unshakable. In the 14th century, the Black Death ripped through Europe, killing half the population. Entire cities emptied, markets collapsed. But the survivors faced a paradox. The greatest tragedy in generations also became one of history's biggest economic resets. With labor scarce, workers could finally demand fair wages. Land, once hoarded by nobles and monasteries, was suddenly cheap and available. Ordinary families who had survived with silver, tools, or grain in hand could buy property once reserved for the elite. Those who had nothing, those who depended entirely on the system, stayed poor or starved. The plague didn't create wealth, it redistributed it. And the pattern never went away. Every crisis in history, from pandemics to wars, follows the same logic. When systems collapse, value doesn't disappear, it changes hands. By the mid-1300s, Florence became the center of European finance. Its great banking families, the Bardi, the Peruzzi, and the Acciaiuoli, lent enormous sums to kings and popes. Their clients were the powerful, their profits immense. But when England's King Edward III defaulted on his war loans in 1345, everything came crashing down. The banks collapsed, trade froze, depositors lost everything. The lesson was brutal and timeless. The phrase "too big to fail" is one of history's greatest lies. Institutions fail first, and the people pay later. 2 centuries later, during the American Civil War, the same pattern repeated in a new world. To pay for the conflict, both sides printed money, the Union with greenbacks, the Confederacy with graybacks. At first, people believed in the paper. It carried patriotic slogans and government seals. But belief doesn't stop inflation. As the presses ran, the value of both currencies collapsed. In the South, prices rose thousands of %. A soldier's pay could barely buy a loaf of bread. Shopkeepers weighed banknotes instead of counting them. Farmers stopped selling food for paper. When Confederate money finally died, people were left holding wallpaper instead of wealth. Those who survived financially weren't heroes. They were the skeptics, the ones who held land, gold, or trade goods. They knew something the rest didn't. Governments fight wars with promises, and promises burn faster than paper. The story repeated in revolutionary France. The people overthrew the monarchy, seized church property, and printed new money backed by that land, the assignats. At first, confidence soared, the revolution felt rich. But soon the government printed more, and more, and more. Each new issue diluted the last. Prices exploded, bread became unaffordable, the farmers stopped selling. Inflation starved the revolution long before the guillotine did. And yet again, those who owned tangible goods, food, metal, property, survived. They didn't trust the slogans. They trusted what they could touch. The pattern was clear long before the modern age. Empires don't fall when armies arrive. They fall when their money dies. When citizens realize their wealth is an illusion, they stop believing, and belief is all that keeps the system alive. History isn't over. The same patterns that collapsed empires are still running today, quietly shaping your money, your freedom, your future. Keep watching. The past already wrote the playbook. Now it's your turn to learn how to survive it. The same illusion still blinds us today. We believe the numbers on a screen represent safety. We believe our banks are guardians, our governments are competent, and our currencies are stable. But every generation makes that same mistake, confusing stability with permanence. In 2008, the world came seconds away from a total financial cardiac arrest. Banks that were too big to fail had built towers of debt on sand. When confidence cracked, those towers collapsed in hours. Trillions were printed overnight to rescue the same institutions that caused the disaster. The public paid with inflation, stagnant wages, and lost homes. Millions lost their jobs, and yet the lesson was buried under bailouts. The system was saved, but not repaired. Then came 2020. A microscopic virus froze global trade faster than any war ever had. Governments panicked, printing money at a scale the world had never seen. In the United States alone, 1/5 of all dollars in existence were created in a single year. Stock markets soared, billionaires doubled their wealth. Meanwhile, ordinary workers watched rent, groceries, and energy costs rise faster than their paycheck. The same trick returned: expand the money supply, call it stimulus, and hope people don't notice who profits first. Across the world, the pattern repeated. In Argentina, inflation climbed above 100%, destroying savings overnight. In Turkey, the lira lost half its value in a year. In Venezuela, money became worthless faster than people could spend it. And in Lebanon, between 2019 and 2021, banks simply locked their doors. Depositors were told their money was safe, they just couldn't withdraw it. The Lebanese pound lost over 90% of its value. Savings built over a lifetime vanished. Families begged outside branches for access to what was rightfully theirs. And if you think that could never happen in the West, remember March 2023. In the United States, regional banks like Silicon Valley Bank collapsed almost overnight. Withdrawals were frozen. The government had to step in again, printing, guaranteeing, and reassuring the public that the system was fine. The pattern never changes. The system survives by consuming trust. And once that trust evaporates, so does the illusion of safety. We live in an era where money itself has become digital fiction, code stored in databases, dependent on confidence that can vanish with a tweet or a policy mistake. Central banks are now experimenting with digital currencies, promising convenience while gaining total control. Imagine a future where every transaction is traceable, every purchase can be blocked, and every citizen's money can expire. That's not progress, that's power disguised as technology. History isn't repeating, it's evolving. And it's warning us again: when trust breaks, paper burns. And today, even the paper is gone. Every collapse leaves the same lessons carved in stone. Governments always debase their money. The temptation to print or dilute is irresistible. Real value survives outside the system. Gold, land, food, skills, and liquidity, assets they can't print. Debt is a trap. Nations, banks, and people drown in promises they can't repay. Institutions exist to protect themselves, not you. When the system cracks, they close the doors. Survivors prepare early. They doubt when everyone else trusts. Survival isn't luck, it's preparation. Collapse is both a tragedy and an opportunity. For the unprepared, it's ruin. For the ready, it's rebirth. History doesn't repeat, but if you ignore it, it will crush you, all the same. If this opened your eyes, subscribe to History's Money Secrets, new videos every week. Stories of money, power, and the empires that fell, believing their wealth would last forever. Learn the lessons most people discover too late. Every empire fails. Know how to survive.